Good day, everyone. Composer99 here, and welcome back to Axis Empire's Totaler Krieg. In this video, we'll be covering the first turn of summer 1942. Let's get on with the summer. No strategic hexes changed hands last season, so the strategic value is still +3, and so the victory count is still 1 VP Axis tied. Let's carry on with the Axis faction turn, starting, of course, with the seasonal phase. We've already discarded their previous current card, so we will reveal the new current card, Operation Felix. During the option card segment, we remove limited war production. And where is that? Here we are. Then we select one target minor country, then either apply declare war to it or roll on the diplomatic incident table. As a reminder, a target minor country is any country that shares a border or naval zone with a country or dependent that contains a ground unit belonging to the phasing faction. So in this case, any Axis ground unit. As a result, we have a lot of potential options. We could pick Finland, although why would we? We could pick Baltic states, although we don't really need to. We're planning to pick Syria, and we're going to declare war. So as part of the option card segment, let's resolve the declaration of war on Syria. Declaring war means we activate the country as an allied country, and we'll figure out which faction Syria is aligning to shortly, although I'm going to say I'm 99% certain it's the Western faction, because it doesn't share a border with a Soviet country. And if the country was subject to a policy, we would end that policy. Of course, neither Western nor Soviet miners are currently policy-affected countries, so we don't have to worry about that. All we have to do is activate Syria. As we said, due to priority 4 of determining alignment of neutral minor countries, since Syria does not share a border with any Soviet country, it aligns with the Western faction. And we forgot to put the Syria flag on the map, so we're just going to go find it here in the counter tray. Activate as Western, and we will add it to the Western force pool here. Although it will very soon become a conquered country, won't it? That goes into the Western force pool. All right, and that is it for the option card segment, except for picking a new pending card, which is going to be our first treaty card. Nominally, next up is the logistics and partisan segment. Of course, we don't have any of either of those to place. Followed up by replacements. We have 1 panzer and 2 infantry steps to place for Germany, and we have our usual suite of minor country steps. 1 Italian and 1 either Italian or, in this case, Yugoslav. We're going to go ahead and place a Yugoslav step and an Italian step. We need to have 1 more Italian step to send to North Africa in order to constitute the Med HQ there. For our German steps, we're going to constitute the paratroopers. That's going to use up 2 infantry steps. And then we get a panzer step. Where are we going to place that? Let's place it in Breslau, because then we can send it to either the northern sector or the Romanian sector, depending on where we end up taking panzer step losses. So that is it for replacements. We'll carry on with the rest of the turn. It's also the end of the seasonal part of the turn. The first things first is initial administration and political events. There is a political event on Operation Felix. And depending on what gets rolled, that may well depend, or that may well decide where we're going to focus our efforts this turn. We have a 1 in 3 chance of conflicting plans, no result. Sorry, scratch that. A 1/2 chance of conflicting plans, no result. And that's just about the best possible result. We have a 1 in 6 chance of a roll on the guarantee table, a 1 in 6 chance of a failure command, which we do not want, and a 1 in 6 chance of mandated offensive, which we also definitely do not want, especially right now when we can't conduct a mandated offensive. Let's just quickly talk about what that is, because it's a fairly brief description. We'll get to failure command if we roll it up. I know we've summarized failure command before, I think way back early on when we were talking about overall card play, but we'll look at it in detail if it happens now. Mandated offensive. The phasing faction must do one of the following. Immediately conduct one attack that includes a friendly armor type unit. Although this attack takes place in the political event segment, follow the regular combat segment rules to resolve it. Or eliminate one friendly armor type step from any unit in a hex on the map. The design note here is refusal to follow orders results in a purge of the ranks. As you might imagine, we're definitely hoping not to get that result, especially since this was our last chance to get Panzer steps until Total War starts. Unfortunately, we're going to be rolling on this table every single turn this season, so it's could get a little hairy depending on how the rolls turn out. A 6 becomes a 6. Conflicting plans, no result. Well, we're breathing a sigh of relief there, aren't we? That is the end of political events. Play proceeds to the support segment. So we need to deploy support units. We don't need to do anything with the forces in the Middle East just yet. In fact, we don't need to do anything with them until reserve movement. So we don't care if they're out of supply. As such, we're going to deploy the Italian convoy on its troop convoy side. What other units do we want to deploy, and where do we want to deploy them? To answer that question, we have to ask, where do we want to attack? We have one blitz marker to place, so let's actually put that into our force pool. And we definitely want to make some progress fighting in Romania this season. Maybe not this turn, but certainly this season. And we probably want to take a crack at Minsk. Unfortunately for the Soviets, their HQ isn't arriving until the last turn of the summer. So we could wait until the very last turn to attack Minsk. We can attack it now. We can basically attack almost any time, although now might be the time to do it before the Soviets clog up the approaches to Minsk. Yeah, let's do that. We do have to take a little care about when we attack Minsk, because that's going to trigger, when we advance into Minsk and occupy it, that's going to trigger Russian emergency mobilization. And as you can see, that gives the Russians a bunch of extra steps and an air force. And they're going to want those extra steps. Do we want to attack Minsk now? We pretty much have to focus on a direction this summer. We're either going to attack Minsk and the hex beside it, or we attack the southern flank and maybe the hex beside it. Let's go ahead and attack Minsk. Our reasoning here is that if we control Minsk, once we control Athens and possibly also Bucharest, we're going to be in Axis tide +2, which is a great place to start at the start of total war. It makes it more likely we'll reach Axis tide 3 VP, which would be a lovely place to be in, especially when we get to playing Festung Europa. With that in mind, what support units do we want to play? There's no sense playing the subfleet. Again, the British have that interceptor that has literally nothing else to do except stop the subfleet. So we do want to play an air force. On the off chance things go badly in Minsk, placing the air force in Minsk means the Russians can't add units there, either by moving in or replacements. We currently have 6, 12, 20, 26, 30, 36 factors, maybe 37 if we send one infantry as a spare, but essentially 36 factors attacking 9, which is 4 to 1. There are defensive shifts for the city and for the fortress, bringing us to the 2 to 1 column. If we're attacking with a blitz marker, we get a shift for an HQ and armor, which brings us back to the 4-1-5-1 column. With a single air force and a paratrooper, we can get to the 9 to 1 column. And I think we like that for the minimal amount of air unit use. So let's go ahead and fly an air force to Minsk. And then we will place a blitz marker in Minsk. And that will be it for the support segment. What about organization? Do we have any organization? We can't do any in Egypt right now, but maybe we organize units here in Yugoslavia and run them up into Timisoara. If we combine these two stacks into infantry armies and we have both of them in Timisoara, that might be a sufficiently strong stack to keep the Russians from attacking it. 2 full 3-step infantry armies would be 12 factors defending versus a potential maximum of 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19 factors attacking, which would be 3 to 2, which would become 2 to 1 if the Soviets have with the HQ, maybe 3 to 1 if the Soviets are playing a card that lets them get a blitz marker. 3 to 1 is still pretty good. If we were to instead turn one of those units into HQ South, we would have 10 factors defending. But again, it would be 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19 factors attacking, which is still not quite 2 to 1. So we're starting from the 3 to 2 column again, only this time there's a shift for HQ, and then a Russian shift for HQ, and maybe a Russian shift for armor. So it could cap out at the 2 to 1 column. And if it did, I mean, the Russians have been pretty lucky with their combat rolls, so it could still be a DR2. I'm not really sure it's worth doing that. Unfortunately, we do really want to get into Timisoara, because then we can have 3 hexes attacking 2903. Another possibility might be to just attack during regular combat. If we have, there are 3, 6, 8, 10 factors defending. There's no way to clear the hex because of the HQ, so I think we're probably okay for now. I think we need to walk into 2902. It's probably fine. It's probably fine because I don't think the Russians really want to walk into 2902 themselves and have 3 hexes attacking, even if they're across the river. We'll have to see. We definitely need to start making blitz attacks down in Romania next turn. So this is our 1 turn of this kind of attack here. So no combination for now. We'll sit tight. That brings us to operational movement. One, two, three. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And what do we want to do down here? We're not really worried about the Russians outflanking. Maybe we'll just schlep back here a bit. Half 1, half 2, half 3. And let's get our blitz area open. So this needs to be blitz enabled in order. Paradrop, half 1, half 2, half 3. That's good. So whatever happens, we'll have it back in time for Barbarossa, which is great. So down here, I think we're not doing much, although we'll just do that. Or rather, we don't want to gum up potential retreat paths, so we'll do that. And then half 1, half 2, half. And that's fine. We'll combine some of those steps next time. Over here, half 1, half 2. And the ports are stacked. That's fine. And the units in North Africa cannot move right now because there's no supply chain back through the Central Med to Italy. So that is it for operational movement. That brings us to blitz combat. As we've calculated, we have 6, 12, 20, 26, 32, 36 factors attacking 9. During blitz combat, we start with the airdrop before blitz combat proper, so we will airdrop into Minsk. It's looking pretty stacked up. As discussed, that starts in the 4-to-1, 5-1 column. The 2 defensive shifts are outweighed by offensive shift for HQ, armor, air unit, and airdrop, bringing us to the 9-to-1 column. That's not great for the Soviets. This is kind of what they were hoping their fort line was going to prevent, but it didn't really help, did it? I guess one thing it is going to stop is retreating out of Minsk because of the fort. Because of the blitz marker, if there was no fort there and with no HQ backup, the Russians would be forced to leave Minsk. A 5. That's good news for the Germans we're not going to lose a panzer step. DR2, 02. It's mandatory retreat conversion, so the Russians have to lose 4 steps. Next up, airdrop landing. Because the airdrop marker is still stacked with an enemy unit, it's just going to go straight to the delay box with no land unit appearing in its place. We'll just flip it over to its unit side here. And that's that. That is the end of the Blitz combat segment. We have normal combat. We're going to follow up and attack Minsk again. We have 36 factors attacking 3. That's enough to get into the 9-1 column by default. We again have 2 shifts in the defender's favor for fort and city. And this time we only have 2 shifts in the attacker's favor for the Air Force and the HQ. That's enough to get us back into the 9-1 column because we're starting there. So, could we get away, I wonder, with not having the Panzer attacking? It would be 6, 12, 18, 24, 28 factors attacking 3, and that's still 9-1. So let's do that so we're not putting any Panzer steps at risk. We're attacking with everyone except the tank army. Panzer army, I mean. A 1. DR302. Well, that'll do for destroying the fort. We'll advance a unit into Minsk. I think we'd better advance a second unit into Minsk just in case. And that is the regular combat segment. During the marker segment, we have to remove the blitz marker. And that brings us to reserve movement. So these infantry armies in Minsk and here, they're stuck. They can't move because they're in base contact with Russians, so they can't leave an enemy ZOC during reserve movement. We do want to avoid the possibility of getting cut off. So we're going to go ahead and move here. And if we move these units here, that will, well here, the Russians won't be able to get around to the HQ. So we'll move like, oh, we can't do that. The infantry can't move into contact with enemy units. The 1 infantry step can't move into contact with enemy units. So that gets us a little bit of support in case the Russians get frisky, although they're not likely to. Now, do we want to move the Panzer step? We'll probably shuffle it forward a little bit. We're still not sure whether we're going to need it up in here to soak off a loss or replace a loss, or down in Romania. All right, let's carry on with reserve movement in the Middle East. I'm going to do that, and we'll just advance this unit here for now. And we have to make room for now. And we'll schlep over there. And that is reserve movement. Do we have any conditional events? We do. We have minor country conquest in Syria. The only step we have to worry about for minor country conquest is removing the minor unit into the Western Conquered Minor Countries box. So we're going to go ahead and put it back in the TK tray, the unit tray, just for ease of reference, or not ease of reference, just for clearing space. We don't want it to get too cluttered in here. And Syria is now a conquered country. And that is it for the Axis faction turn. Play proceeds to the Western faction. The Western faction is going to reveal their new card, Lend-Lease to Britain. Remove card 18B, Operation Jupiter. Where is that? There you go. We'll go ahead and clean up the counter tray. We do have to put that in the delay box, so we'll just do that. Even though there's a step ahead of there. If Britain is not a policy-affected country, apply neutrals pressured. Then roll on Middle East area table. If result is a neutral minor country, the Axis faction must apply free passage to it. At this point, all the remaining neutral countries in the Middle East area table have influence markers. So we can freely place influence markers somewhere else. I think the best place for an influence marker is probably Greece, because we're quite confident that the Axis want to have Greece on their side. So that will make them waste one of their activations with treaty. Let's go ahead and do that. So that's our neutrals pressured. Now we have to roll on the Middle East area table. There's a +1 die roll modifier. 2 becomes 3. What is that? Persia. Well, Persia is not a neutral country, so the Axis cannot apply free passage to it. That is that for that. With the option card segment over, we need to pick a new pending card. And we already know it's going to be Churchill Diplomacy. Notice the card does not have any British steps. We still get our minor country steps, though. So let's go ahead and place those. We get one minor country step, and we have one minor country step to place. The Persians. There's probably not much point having them sit in Persia. It's doubtful at this point that the Axis are going to commit enough units to venture towards Iraq and Kuwait and threaten to conquer Persia. You never know, they might. But with the possibility of the British attacking out of East Africa, I don't think they feel like they can. They might be able to now, while the British don't have their HQ, but they know that the British can constitute their HQ anytime they want. It's only the threat of the Germans adding their southern HQ on the board right now that's sort of keeping the British honest. Also the fact that the British don't want to take too many step losses right now. You know, they're still not at a point where they can afford to take losses. Anyway, that's it for the Western seasonal turn, or seasonal phase. They have a political event. No, they do not. During the support segment, they want to ask themselves, do they want to deploy a convoy to the Arabian Sea? They probably do, because now they can start thinking about shipping some of these units out of Kuwait. back to East Africa. They can always go back to Kuwait if they have to. So yeah, let's go ahead and deploy a convoy. Do we want to blockade the central Mediterranean? We still can because we have Malta. So we've got our naval base / open port. We can string a chain of sea zones to the central Mediterranean. Would it be worthwhile? I don't believe, no, the Axis do not yet have their Italian fleet back. It's not coming back for several turns yet. And it's doubtful that the Germans are going to want to send an air force to contest a blockade. On the other hand, what is a blockade doing? I don't think we're getting any value out of it, so I don't think there's a point. Yeah, if we were not attacking, we're not getting any value out of the blockade just yet. We'll wait a little bit. All right, that's it for support then. Play proceeds to organization segment. We don't have any. Operational movement. So this unit will schlep on over to the East Africa box. And this unit will go half, 1, half, 2. That is it for operational movement. No combat, marker segment, reserve movement. This unit will also schlep on over to the East Africa box. Maybe we'll just restructure those a little bit. And half, 1, half, 2. And that is it for reserve movement. There is a conditional event on the Western faction card. If Britain's postur's war, receive Britain 1 colonial step. So this is in lieu of getting replacements during the seasonal phase. They're getting conditional event replacements every turn. We now have enough steps to form Western Defense Force HQ, or Western Defense Force HQ. Technically, we have enough steps to also form 8th Army, but we want to use that BEF step with the Persians to create the Allied Army, I think. The multinational unit. So we do want to have 1 colonial step down here. The others can go up to go to Britain. So Canadian, French, and Polish colonial units would go in the Canada-US box. The Polish and French one might also be able to be deployed straight into Britain. So we'll go ahead and place South Africa. Where is that a reinforcement location? I think that's the Western Africa box. Yes. Let's go ahead and put the New Zealand unit in the Middle East box. And that is the Western faction turn. You know, we still want to be on this side of the map. Basically, all the action is happening on the Eastern European map for the foreseeable future. That brings us to the Soviet faction turn. The Soviets reveal their new current card, Limited War Production. There's a pretty good chance they're going to be taking at least some losses again for the rest of the season, so they're going to pick pre-war production as their pending card. We're probably only going to pick Litvinov Diplomacy when we're running out of units to build again. Maybe next summer, just because it's, 3 political roles is better than nothing. So we'll proceed straight to replacements. Unfortunately, we still only have 2 out of a possible 4 infantry to place. let's go ahead and place them. Where do we want to place them? One thing we might want to be thinking about is building up forts along the frontier with Romania, because we can still place the line forts along borders with minor countries, and it doesn't matter whether they're Soviet countries or conquered countries or what have you. But that might help later when the Germans are looking to attack into Ukraine, now that they've sort of already started cracking the line here in Belarusia. But we probably want to block their path. Although I can't say we're too concerned about them advancing towards Smolensk. They don't have the unit density. I mean, maybe they do, but then we could cut them off out of supply and possibly start attacking and killing them once our own HQ is on the board over the winter. If we cut off a bunch of Germans, it would be worth it to play an inefficient Blitzmarker card in order to kill them. One big question is, do we want to sit in Borisov with a full stack? We probably are okay doing that because the Germans aren't likely to use another Blitzmarker. So where are we putting units? We're probably going to use these armor steps because we don't have any multi-step mech calves to build out. And I guess we'll just put units there. And that's it for replacements. Oh, we could have contested the Air Force placement there, but you know what? We'll have other chances to contest Air Force placement. So we won't worry about that. Well, maybe we will. Let's just pretend we contested it. So we'll send that to the delay box, and we'll send that to the delay box. Okay, that brings us to initial administration. We don't have any support segment. We don't have any organization. We'll send that back to the force pool and build that up. Unfortunately, we can't build up the HQ yet. Actually, maybe we want to... Sorry. 1, 2, 3, 4. No, we'll still do that, what we did. We want to build up the HQ to its maximum size if we can. So we're at operational movement. One of these would be okay to send down to start building some forts along the line in Romania. So half 1, half 2. Half 1, half 2. 1, 2. Hmm. 1, 2, 3. Half 1, half 2. We do have a question whether we want to move any units out of the line in Ukraine. I think we hold fast for now because the Germans will probably attack Borisov, but it's, for the reasons we discussed, it's doubtful that they'll advance further heading into the bad weather. So that will do for operational movement, unless we have anything we want to do here. Do we? Maybe we do. We can have 3, 6, 7, 8, 10 factors defending in 2902, and that might be what we need to do to sort of muck up a German advance. So let's go ahead and advance. advance, and advance. Do we want to just throw the armor into 2903? I'm not sure that we do. We'll do that. All right, that's it for operational movement. We have no combat. At least I don't think so. Let's take a look. We could maybe attack 3, 6, 7. Sorry, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 19, 21, I think, to 6, right? 3, 6, 7, 10, 13, 16, 19. Yeah, 21 factors attacking 6. Is 3 to 1, becomes 4 to 1, goes back 3 to 1. That's pretty good. And with no armor steps participating, we don't maybe care about losses. We're only killing Yugoslav units, so I don't know if that's worthwhile. We only actually have a 1 in 3 chance of killing a unit. I think the Yugoslavs are quite happy taking retreat results. Would it get us anything to advance into that hex? Yes, sort of. But I'm not sure once there are actual German multi-step units and blitz markers down there. So we'll it would shorten the line against Subotica. Or not Subotica, just that one hex, 2902 though. That would be okay. Let's do it. Although, well, yeah, we can probably afford a loss. Sure. A 3. Dear 1, 0, 0. Well, it was kind of a big load of nothing, but whatever, it's fine. So the retreat. And do we want to advance? Only 2 hexes attacking, which is okay, but the problem is it could be 2 hexes of beefy Germans. So, 11, potential maximum of 11 factors defending. Although in order to get there, we would have to move units out of here, which we don't want to. So it'll be 10 factors defending against potentially 10, 18, 23 factors attacking, which would be 2 to 1. There'd be an HQ shift in our favor, an HQ shift for the Axis, an armor shift for the Axis, probably an Air Force shift for the Axis. Which is not bad, but it's pretty likely with those step losses that they'll do a lot of damage eventually. Anyway, let's advance. With the HQ, we're going to be staying put, so I think we like that. Sure. That's it for combat. Now it's reserve movement. Half, 1, 2. And I'll go back here. I'll go there. That's it for now. So that is the end of the Soviet faction turn. They don't have any conditional events, so we have delay rolls. A 5. Well, that's unfortunate. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Another 5. That's not unfortunate. We don't really care about that unit because we can't reconstitute it this summer. We don't need it till next summer. 1. And last but not least. Oh, we do have a conditional event, actually, which applies to these delay rolls. All this stuff goes to the delay box. All right, we actually have a lot of delay rolls. So we have 2 air units, Red Army Air Force delay rolls, not Frost Force. 3 and 1. Well, that's going to annoy the Germans. 1, 2, 3, and 1. And then we have a bunch of army units. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Infantry. 2, 4. Can't get much more lopsided than that, can you? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then 4 more. 6, 8. That's 1, 2, 3, and finally the fortress. A 1. Well, the Germans are a little annoyed with how their delay rolls rent relative to everyone else's. Alright, so we have to add units back to the force pools, and we will move the turn marker. So there's a brand new surface fleet in the Western faction force pool. They're very pleased with that. Right, Russians. Lots of, oh, not a lot of new Russians, just a few. That's 2, 3, 4. I want to say that's there. We have so few infantry units. All right, that is that for that. All right, that is going to be the end of this turn, and therefore the end of this video. We'll proceed with the Axis faction turn starting next turn. I must admit, the Germans are thinking maybe they should have attacked in Romania this past turn instead of where they did attack. But nothing doing. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please feel free to like and subscribe, and we will see you next time.